Well, I am so excited about today. You're probably wondering why. I'm excited about today because I have someone that you are absolutely going to love. I have, ladies and gentlemen, with me MK Morales. MK Morales is a nonprofit executive, an author, a coach, and someone that I believe you want to get to know. So, MK, how are you?
Oh my gosh, what a great introduction. I am honored, Simon, to be with you today. As you know, this is a dream come true for me. So,
Oh my goodness. So glad you're with us. We finally did it. We've been talking about it forever.
well, you've been my coach and mentor for 17 years. So, this is like a dream come true for me.
Oh my goodness. So, MK, tell everyone what has been one of the most challenging times in your life?
Oh my gosh, this is such a great question. So, the two really defining moments in my life was I was deaf as a little girl. And it was one of the moments where I realized that human beings could be judgmental and cruel, right? So, being deaf as a little girl, it was really difficult because it was the first time I realized that you could be separate from a community of people. And I remember one afternoon I was standing in a group of my lady friends and not being able to hear what they were saying. And they kind of shuffled off to the left or to the right, and they began to giggle and laugh and then looked over their shoulder at me. And I interpreted that as though they were making fun of my hearing impairment. And
Wow.
at that moment, I had my very first experience of unworthiness and I'm not enough, which really was a narrative that led me towards the most difficult time in my life. And you know this about me, but I am a recovered addict. And the most difficult journey in my life was overcoming my addiction because you
Wow.
know, it's not necessarily it's not just the chemical addiction that's really the hard part. It really is a spirit, body, and mind disease. And when you carry with you the story of unworthiness and shame, overcoming the addiction becomes that much harder. And so, living those 10 years as a woman in her early 20s or late 20s and early 30s who had dreams the size of Texas, but had this terrible addiction and it was winning, it was really the hardest time in my life.
How did you break free from it?
Well, it's a series of conversations, and the defining moment for me, it was one afternoon. I was living at my parents' house, and my dad was out on the far borders of the property. And you remember the old lawnmowers where people were
Yeah.
like pushing the lawnmower. And I looked out the window, and I really had an urge to use.
Hmm.
And I knew that it was the wrong thing to do because here I am living in my parents' house, but the addiction was so strong. And I turned away from the window and I went to a closet in my bedroom. And as I began to reach into the closet for my drug of choice, I began to cry out to God and beg for help. I was like, because I've always loved God, I've always been a woman of faith, but I was feeling that I am not enough. I am unworthy that I felt as a little girl who was deaf, right? So I began crying out to God and I said, God, I'll take anything but this. And I named 5 very powerful diseases, all of which you would know, because I thought at least then people wouldn't be upset with me. They would have compassion for me instead of judgment. And I swear to you, Simon, it was in that moment crying out to God. I said, God, I'll take anything but this. And literally in my spirit, I felt like I had a tap on my shoulder that said, Mary Katherine, this is your cross. You will recover and you'll write a book about the journey through hell to home.
Wow, that's incredible. What encouragement would you give to someone who is struggling with addiction or just struggling, period?
You know, and I love that. It doesn't just have to be addiction. Life can be really, really difficult, right? So they say that addiction is a symptom of something else, right? So it was a manifestation of that story of I'm not enough and I'm not good enough, right? And there are millions and millions of people who suffer with that. So the advice that I would give is don't give up, beautiful. Keep going, keep trying, do the next right thing. Do not be discouraged or afraid to ask for the help that you need, because whether it's addiction, whether it's cancer, whether you just lost your dream job or your marriage is dissolving, if we put into practice simple spiritual practices and we begin to reach out and ask for help, transformation is possible for all of us, no matter what you face.
So you have totally shifted your life as a nonprofit executive, author, coach. When you read the book, Shift Your Brilliance, what happened in your life?
So I'm going to show you this book. For me, I got all kinds of notes. This book, I've read it multiple times. I use it as a resource and a tool. And when I read it a couple of years ago, I actually think I sent you a picture of me studying the book for a second time.
Yeah.
And it was your step one in learning how to see yourself and your life differently.
Wow. Incredible.
To a whole nother level, right? So you talked about the 5 steps to a clear vision. And I really thought I had a clear vision, but when I sat down with your book again for a second or maybe even a third time and began to answer the questions about where do I see myself, not only in 30 or 60 days, but what is God calling me to be? Who is God calling me to be? And I'm telling you, I have to get a sheet of paper because I still go through your 5 steps. I still practice those 5 steps. And the second thing that I learned that you wrote about in your book, and you and I have talked about this over many years, but the power of developing a distinct brand.
Wow. And how have you developed a distinct brand? Because I think what you're doing is so amazing. I'm so proud of you. But tell others.
Well, you take us through some really important questions. You ask in the book, your brand is the experience, the emotion that we evoke in other people. And so I was actually sitting out on the beach under one of these huge umbrellas, and I really began to ask myself, what is the brand? Who is MK Morales? How does it align with the vision that I have for the world, right? So I really began to think about what is the experience that I think I bring to the world. And by taking time again to answer those questions, I think my brand and my distinction is that, and you know this because you've read my book, you've seen my website, is once I had the courage to tell the world what happened to me and who I had become in my addiction, but that transformation is possible no matter what we face. That's part of my brand. Is you've taught me over the years that it's okay to be perfectly imperfect. It's okay to share my story. And I think that's the distinction, is I use my setbacks and my failures to inspire other women to go for the life of their dreams and to use their setbacks to define their purpose.
So as a result of establishing your brand, you've written a book, Becoming a Woman of Principle,
Yes.
an amazing book. Can you tell everyone about this book? So just 1 or 2 of the principles, and help us understand why this is so important to you.
Absolutely. So again, you asked me a really important question many years ago. You said, MK, how did you become MK 2.0? How did you go from almost a homeless addict to a woman with purpose and power and passion? And nobody had ever asked me that question before. So as I began to write my book, I began to ask myself, what are the practices that helped me to become who I am today? And I have 5 practices in my book, but I'll take you through just one of those. So the first practice, and the hardest one, is becoming beautifully transparent through the practice of honesty. And I truly, truly believe that the biggest epidemic we face today as a country and as a people is the permission to be honest. We live in a culture that tells us it is okay to tell small white lies. And it was actually the hardest chapter that I wrote because it implies that I think people are dishonest. And that's not actually what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So the principle is transparency. And I hope you don't mind, I brought a show and tell item.
Yeah, please, please, absolutely.
So here's the distinction. This is transparency and this is not, right? So when we think about a principle, it transcends space and time. It is our North Star. It is where we are headed. This is ultimate, like truth and honesty. But most of us end up here, right? Because of our limiting belief systems, we say things to ourselves like, I can't be honest with my boss. I can't be honest with my children. I can't be honest with my friends because we have different political views or we have different perspectives on religion or life's experiences. So we say things like, well, I will give a half truth or I'll tell part of the truth, but I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But what science shows and what Dr. Caroline Leaf teaches us, and she's one of my mentors in mind health and brain health, is that when I develop the skills to be as honest as possible, and I practice this in my life, that I actually experience more joy, more freedom, and more intimacy in my relationships. And so as women of faith, we get to be intentional about learning why I have a tendency to be this honest instead of dishonest. And
Wow,
that's one of the practices I teach.
that's so good.
Thank
One of
you.
the things I'm so proud of is you have been bold in holding in-person meetings for women that are following you now because of the breakthroughs that you've had in your life. What are some of the feedback and testimonies and results you're hearing from women who have really adapted how to become a woman of principle?
Well, it's funny because I had a group coaching session last night, 9 women from around the country. And what they just reminded me of last night is that being a woman of principle is really about shifting our perspective, right? It's about transforming our lives by the renewing of our mind. And just last night, they said, you know what, MK, you've helped me to become more mindful, more confident, less overwhelmed, less fearful. Because in the Women of Principle community and what I teach is that it's okay to explore your full potential. It's okay to take a look at our limiting beliefs and not judge them, but just begin to observe them and then begin to redevelop mindsets that help us to shift. And so that's what they said last night, is that all of their relationships have improved from the boardroom to the conversations that they're having with their children, because what I implement is what I like to call my freedom formula, which is thoughts plus words plus inspired action equal the outcomes in our life. And so through this journey of becoming a woman of principle, we talk about each of those areas so that we can explore our full potential and live with more freedom and more joy.
Wow. Real quick, tell everyone where they can get the book. I want to make sure people know.
So you can go to womanofprinciple.com, and there are a number of different places there on the toolkit page, under the services page, under the home page, where you can get a free segment of the book. You get the first couple of chapters to see if you like it and it inspires you. It's also on Amazon, Walmart, Target, and a number of other places online.
Awesome. MK, you are a brilliant woman. And one of the things I'm so proud of is you started a Facebook group. And what are the numbers like now of women that are following you all over the world?
Well, we have 1,000 women that are part of this private Facebook group. And if you are a lady friend, I want to invite you into our community. It's Women of Principle on Facebook. And then, of course, I have a presence on LinkedIn, and I have about 3,000 followers there.
That's incredible. What are you hearing from the women in the Facebook group? What are they sharing, and how are they really adapting your teaching to their lives to go deeper and to be stronger and better?
You know, one of the ladies that I've been mentoring for a couple of years, her name is Holly, and I know she won't mind me sharing this because she gave me permission, she said when she and I first started working together, God was here and she was here. And that she was consumed with fear and self-doubt. She had just lost her beloved Craig to a tragic accident, and she had lost faith in herself, faith in God, and faith in her future. And we were introduced by a mutual friend, and we've been working together now for about 2.5 years. And I am so, so proud of her. I have goosebumps right now from head to toe because she recently moved to North Carolina, and she's starting what's called Holly's House. And so if you look at her testimony on the Women of Principle page, she said, from fearful to fearless, and from limiting beliefs to unlimited potential. And she's starting her own nonprofit for women. So that's the impact of the Women of Principle community.
This is so powerful. Everyone listening to us right now, I hope that you just caught the wisdom that MK shared with us about moving from being fearful to fearless. It's totally possible for you. Some of you listening to us right now may feel that you're blocked, you're stuck because of uncertainty. And what I really believe that if it can happen for MK, it can happen for you. But you have to take that first step. And when you take that first step, everything begins to open up. Okay. So MK, what's next for you?
Gosh, that's such a great question. Well, I got to go back and expand my 5-step process and my vision because like anything else, right? It changes as we have the faith and the courage to step out and take just one step. So what's next for me is I'm using my book as a platform to encourage and inspire women to explore their full potential and to believe in spiritual transformation. I would welcome the opportunity. I have another coaching community starting in August. So I'd love to invite your listeners to contact me to be part of that. And I'm doing some coaching, for small businesses, helping them to define their mission, their vision, and their purpose. And those are some of the things that I'm really focused on right now.
That's so good. So one thing I think that's critically important, you're married to an amazing man, Al.
Yes.
And could you give us a marriage tip on how do you continue to ensure you take all the principles that you teach, but to make sure they work in your home as a wife and as a mother?
Oh my gosh. Now that is the most important question that you and I are talking about today. When I started writing my book, what I recognize is that Al and Mia are part of my process. They're part of my purpose. And you are absolutely right. He is the most loving, amazing friend, husband, and dad. So what we actually started a few years ago, and we do it every week, is I share with him what I'm learning, what I'm doing. Even today's conversation with you, I enroll him in that conversation. I ask for his advice. We pray together. And the biggest tip is if you are up to really big things in the world and you want to maintain and expand your marriage and expand the relationship with your children, what I've done is I say, all right, babe, do you mind if I take 3 hours on Saturday and work on this specific project? Is there anything you need from me before or after, so that he's included in the process and he doesn't feel like I'm kind of running rogue on the other side, that he is part of the Women of Principle success?
That is so good. And in fact, when you hosted an in-person event, Al was there in the room, the token male.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. As a matter of fact, he is my right-hand man. He helps me set up all the props. he runs the camera, and he actually welcomes the women into the conversation. He was there from start to finish.
That's so good. But you said something that was really important. I hope everyone wrote that down and will share that. You enrolled him, you enlisted him, you engaged him. And the reason I think that is so important is approaching a man with a spirit of respect, respecting who he is as a man doesn't diminish who you are as a woman, but together as equals, you're supporting each other so that when he wants to go and do something, he will enroll you. So it really comes down to communication. Oh, this is so awesome. Okay, MK, we're going to have a little fun. And
Okay.
this is the lightning round.
Oh
And
gosh, here
so
we
I'm
go.
just going to ask you a question because inquiring minds want to know.
All right, let me take a sip of water here. Let me get ready. All right, lay it on me.
All right, favorite food.
Pizza.
Okay, favorite activity that you like to do to relax.
Wave runners.
Favorite book that you've read.
Oh my gosh, Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf, hands down.
Oh, nice. Favorite sport.
Oh gosh, I would have to say cycling because I'm not a huge football fan or sports fan.
Okay, all right. If you can meet anyone that is dead or alive and have lunch with them, famous or not famous, who would it be and why?
Oh my gosh, other than Jesus, because I'm a believer, I would sit down with him and ask him every question about spiritual principles and practices. But the alive person would be Dr. Caroline Leaf. I would love to spend a weekend with her, understanding more about the neuroscience behind the mind-brain connection.
Wow. How do you want to be remembered?
Oh gosh, I want to be remembered as a woman who truly, truly cared about other women becoming all that God is calling her to be. And that everything I do is really for other people to experience the same grace and same transforming power that I have, because I've received far more than I've ever deserved, and my life is beyond my wildest dreams. So I want to give it all away.
Wow, that's so good. Once again, tell everybody where they can go to find out more about your book and follow you.
Okay. So you can go to womanofprinciple.com, and I have a beautiful website there. It's full of resources, tools, and tips for you to become the most confident version of you. You can come to Facebook at Women of Principle, or you can follow me on LinkedIn at Mary Katherine Morales.
Absolutely awesome. So ladies, if you're looking for a community that is grounded, that is inclusive, that really builds you up to become the best human being you possibly can be, I want you to stop by and check out all that MK is doing. MK, I just want to honor you for being here. The last 17 years of being connected to you, I'm so proud to see all that has happened in your life. You are absolutely amazing. So proud of you. I see your brilliance. I so appreciate your compassion, your kindness, and most importantly, your consistency. Because a lot of people talk, but there's a difference between talking and execution, right? Talk is the cheapest type of insurance policy that people can buy, but it's about the execution. And you have that ability to get up and get after it and make it happen. So
Amen.
I salute you and I celebrate you, oh brilliant one.
Thank you. And I accept that today, Simon. I want to thank you for 17 years of believing in me, inspiring me, coaching me, and speaking into my brilliance. And you are one of the top 5 people in my life that saw the very best in me when I was becoming all that God has called me to be today. And so it's been an honor and a privilege. And thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, so glad you came. Thank you so much. Everyone, MK Morales, please go follow her. Thank you, MK.
Bye. Love you guys.